Keisha Lauren grew up in a modest neighborhood on the outskirts of Atlanta, where every dollar counted and every opportunity felt hard-won. Her parents worked long hours, her mother as a nurse's aide and her father as a mechanic, yet they always found time to sit at the kitchen table after dinner and talk about hopes for the future. From a young age, Keisha watched her father turn old, rusted cars into shining machines, and she absorbed lessons about patience, hard work, and the pride that comes from doing a job well. She learned that people remember the way you treat them more than the work you do, and that kindness can open doors that money cannot. These lessons stayed with her as she excelled at school, winning scholarships that led her to a top business college where she studied finance and management. After graduation, Keisha joined a prominent automotive firm as an analyst. She spent long nights poring over spreadsheets, learning the intricate dance between marketing, sales, and customer satisfaction. She noticed patterns in the data, how a friendly greeting could boost initial sales meetings, or how a simple follow-up call could turn a tentative interest into a firm commitment. She also saw how, in some branches, customers from certain backgrounds were often shown fewer options or steered toward cheaper models. She felt a knot in her stomach, but filed the observations away, determined to rise through the ranks and change things from the top. Within a decade, she had positioned herself as one of the youngest regional managers in the company's history, overseeing multiple dealerships and implementing customer-first programs that lifted both morale and profits. Driven by her desire to shape a more inclusive business, Keisha took the bold step of founding her own company, Laurent Automotive Group. She secured a small loan, borrowed ideas from her father's garage, and signed a lease on a rundown warehouse. With her savings, she bought used computers, hired a handful of staff, and painted the walls a bright blue, her mother's favorite color. From the start, she declared that her dealership would be a place where every customer felt valued, regardless of who they were or where they came from. She insisted that her sales team receive both technical product training and lessons in empathy, teaching them to ask questions, listen carefully, and treat everyone with genuine respect. The early days were a whirlwind of challenges and triumphs. Keisha worked 17-hour days, balancing the books late into the night and greeting first-time customers with an enthusiastic smile before dawn. She faced skepticism from industry veterans who doubted that a small startup could compete with established names. She faced skepticism, too, from some customers who assumed a woman, let alone a black woman, could not possibly run a successful dealership. When rumors of her business began spreading, first through neighborhood word of mouth, then in local newspapers, she threw herself into community events, sponsoring youth sports teams and hosting car care workshops for new drivers. Slowly, the warehouse showroom filled with a steady stream of customers drawn by her energy and commitment. Within 5 years, Laurent Automotive Group had outgrown its original location, and Keisha invested in a gleaming new flagship dealership in downtown Atlanta. The new building stood on a busy corner, its glass walls reflecting the city skyline. A landscaped plaza led to wide automatic doors that opened into an airy space filled with natural light. Sleek models of electric and hybrid SUVs were wheel-to-wheel with rugged off-road trucks, symbolizing the full range of options available to anyone who walked in. The sales desks were arranged in clusters, encouraging collaboration rather than competition, and a comfortable lounge hosted coffee machines, charging stations, and books on cars, business, and leadership. On the wall behind the reception desk hung a single framed quote from Keisha: "Respect and integrity cost nothing, but their value is priceless." Keisha made it a point to visit every corner of the dealership at least once a week, greeting customers, checking in with employees, and offering impromptu training. She knew every staff member by name and often asked about their families, hobbies, and aspirations. Many of them had joined Laurent Automotive because they believed in her vision of a fair and welcoming environment. Some had come from larger dealerships where they felt like numbers, unheard and undervalued. Under Keisha's leadership, they discovered that their ideas mattered. She encouraged them to propose improvements, and when a suggestion passed a simple feasibility test, she implemented it without hesitation. One of her first acts was to launch a minute of appreciation at the start of each day's morning huddle, giving each team member a chance to thank someone else for a specific act of kindness or professionalism. This small ritual created a ripple effect of goodwill that customers began to notice and talk about. Despite the outward success, Keisha remained alert to undercurrents she had long ago learned to recognize. Late-night calls from customers who felt they had been shuffled aside at competitor dealerships, offhand comments heard in break rooms or whispered by new hires about dealer discretion. She recorded these stories in a private notebook, intending to address each one when she had the power to make lasting change. She believed that true leadership meant confronting uncomfortable truths, not sweeping them under the rug. In staff meetings, she occasionally reminded everyone that bias could be as small as a glance or as large as a policy that went unchallenged. She spoke of empathy not as a soft skill, but as a strategic advantage. When our customers know we see them, as people first, they become lifelong advocates. They tell friends, they return, they drive business forward. The reputation of Laurent Automotive Group grew not just because of the shiny cars or the sleek architecture, but because people sensed that something genuine was happening there. Local media covered how Keisha personally dropped off a loaner vehicle to a single mother whose car had broken down. Community leaders praised her sponsorship of a scholarship program for first-generation college students. Industry insiders noted that her Net Promoter Scores, customer surveys that measured willingness to recommend the dealership, consistently ranked among the highest in the region. Yet Keisha herself remained both practical and grounded. She knew that words and numbers, while powerful, must be backed by deeds. She continued to drive her father's old truck when she visited family on weekends, a reminder of where she came from and whom she served. In the background of all this success lay the quiet awareness that, even in her own company, no one was immune to human bias. She trusted her team, but she also knew the importance of checks and balances. She had installed an anonymous feedback line for employees and customers alike, monitored by an independent firm. She required that any customer complaint be logged, in full detail, with follow-up actions documented in writing. She even randomized the order in which customers were greeted at busy times to ensure that no one saw favoritism in how salespeople approached them. It was one more way of sending a message. Every person who walked through those glass doors deserved the same first-class treatment. And so, on that bright Thursday afternoon when Keisha Laurent decided to stop by unannounced, she did so as a confident leader secure in her vision. She parked her car in the specially reserved CEO spot, curious to see how morning business was humming along. Inside, she felt the familiar warmth of sunlight on the polished floor, the low hum of conversation, and the faint scent of new leather. She was proud of how far she had come, and she knew that, despite decades of progress in the industry, there were still moments when her presence would test the assumptions of others. For Keisha, this visit was meant to be routine, an informal check on the new electric model display and a chance to chat with staff. But she sensed that today might bring something more, an unexpected reminder that her commitment to respect and equality was as essential now as it ever had been. Keisha Laurent arrived at the dealership on a bright Thursday afternoon, expecting a routine walkthrough. As she drove up in her sleek black sedan, she noticed the sunlight glinting off the glass facade of the building, casting long reflections across the polished pavement. The parking lot was busy, but she easily spotted the spot reserved for her, clearly marked and conveniently close to the entrance. She turned off the engine, adjusted her jacket, and stepped out, the click of her shoes sounding crisp against the concrete. In her hand, she carried a leather-bound notebook where she wrote observations, ideas, and reminders for improving customer experience. Today, she planned simply to look over the new electric SUV models, chat with a few team members, and perhaps name the winner of the monthly Customer Champion Award. It was a light agenda, one she looked forward to because it meant connecting directly with the people who brought her vision to life. When Keisha entered through the main doors, she inhaled the familiar scent of polished leather and fresh coffee. The showroom was calm but bustling in a quiet way. A family inspecting a red coupe near the left wall, a young couple discussing financing options at a desk in the center, and a few sales associates standing by, ready to assist but deferring to one another in a smooth, practiced dance. Keisha gave a gentle nod to the receptionist, a recent hire named Jasmine, who looked up and offered a warm smile. Jasmine gave a small wave as if to say, "Welcome back, CEO." But Keisha simply returned the gesture and began to stroll toward the display area. Her presence was meant to feel almost invisible, a secret shopper with authority, because that's how she often learned the most, by watching her team interact with customers without them altering their behavior. Keisha's first stop was the row of charging stations set up beside the newest electric models. She admired the sleek lines, the quiet hum of the display units, and the way the lights on the dashboards glowed softly. She tapped her pen on the notebook, jotting down a note about adding clearer signage to guide first-time electric vehicle buyers. She was about to flip the page when she heard footsteps approaching from behind. Turning, she saw Leo, one of her more experienced sales associates, carrying tablets loaded with spec sheets. He stopped short, unfamiliar with the idea that she might be here unannounced. "Good afternoon, Ms. Laurent," he said, his voice polite, but distant. "Can I help you?" Keisha smiled and declined, explaining she was just browsing and wanted to see how the new layouts were working in practice. Leo nodded and walked away, probably to assist another customer. Keisha watched him go, then adjusted her notebook to peek at the next entry. Before she could write anything, she heard an exchange just a few steps over. Two staff members were whispering near the service desk, which sat at the back wall of the showroom. Something in their tone drew Keisha's attention. They sounded uneasy, almost guilty. Curious, she made her way toward them, passing gleaming SUVs on her left and a wall of awards and certificates on her right. Each award celebrated milestones in sales growth, customer satisfaction, or community service. The atmosphere was one of pride, but Keisha knew that even the prettiest trophies could hide small cracks. As she approached the service desk, she noticed a middle-aged man standing with his arms folded. His name badge read, Mike Connolly, floor manager. He looked at Keisha with a careful neutrality, his mouth set in a thin line as if bracing himself. Behind him, a younger associate lingered, eyes darting between Mike and Keisha. Keisha's heart skipped a beat, not from fear but from curiosity. She'd never seen Mike behave like this. Normally, he greeted every visitor, friend or stranger, with the same enthusiastic handshake and energetic welcome. Today, though, he seemed different. She stepped up to the counter and cleared her throat softly, catching his eye. "Good afternoon," Keisha said, her tone friendly. "I wanted to see how things are going with the customer service area. Could I get the key for a quick test drive of the new electric SUV?" She placed her notebook on the counter so he could see her name and title printed on the cover, Keisha Laurent, CEO. In most places, that would have been enough to earn immediate respect. But Mike looked down at the notebook, then back at her, and shook his head. "I'm sorry, ma'am," he said with an almost rehearsed apology. "You'll have to wait your turn just like every other customer. I can't cut in line for anybody." His voice was firm, as though he believed he was upholding fairness by treating the boss just like anyone else. Yet the younger associate beside him swallowed and glanced away. Keisha felt her surprise ripple into something sharper. Her cheeks warmed, not from anger, but from incredulity. She had built her company on the principle that every person, employee or executive, new customer or longtime client, deserved prompt and courteous attention. And here, in the heart of her own flagship dealership, that principle was being challenged. She kept her voice steady as she answered, "I appreciate fairness, Mike, but as CEO, I have the authority to inspect any part of the operation at any time. I'd like to proceed now, please." She gestured to the display key hanging on the board behind him. Mike's eyes flicked quickly to the line of waiting customers, as though he hoped someone else might intervene, but around them the air stilled. A few people paused in their browsing, sensing the tension without fully understanding why. The young couple at the central desk stopped mid-conversation with their sales rep. Jasmine, the receptionist, leaned forward, eyebrows knitting in concern. In that moment, Keisha realized how quickly an assumption could turn a simple moment into a test of values. Mike drew in a slow breath and looked back at the notebook. He flipped through the pages as though reassessing who this person was. Finally, he leaned back and said in a quieter tone, "I understand, but the policy is policy." His words carried a finality that felt more defensive than professional. Keisha closed her notebook, slowing herself to the rhythm of unhurried patience, she preached. "Then let's review the policy together," she said gently. "Because it seems like it's being applied without knowing who the policy was written to serve." She tapped the notebook cover, then placed it face up so the title was clearly visible. "I wrote that policy, and I expect it to reflect the values we advertise: respect, integrity, and clear communication." A hush fell over the showroom. Customers and staff alike watched as Keisha and Mike stood in the middle of the room, two people representing two sides of the same company. Keisha kept her posture open, hands relaxed at her sides, inviting dialogue. Mike crossed his arms again, the crease between his eyebrows deepening. He looked at the notebook, then back at her face, and for a moment, Keisha thought he might relent. Instead, he shook his head without speaking, eyes fixed on her as though daring her to make a bigger scene. Keisha felt the weight of his refusal settle in her chest, but she refused to raise her voice or show anger. She closed her eyes briefly, reminding herself that anger could speak more loudly than she intended. When she opened them, her expression was calm and firm. She placed a hand on the notebook and said, "All right, Mike. We can handle this the way we handle any customer frustration, with an open mind and a clear record. I'm going to note this interaction, and we'll talk about it in the meeting tomorrow. For now, I'll wait my turn." She offered him a steady nod and stepped back toward the seating area, lifting her chin slightly to show she was unshaken. As she walked away, the entire showroom exhaled, and the bustle of the afternoon resumed, but with a new undercurrent of alert attention. Keisha sat down in one of the plush chairs near the lounge, opened her notebook, and began to write. She noted the time, 2:17 p.m. She described Mike's words, his posture, the way customers had gone silent. She recorded her own feelings: surprise, disappointment, resolve. Above all, she reminded herself that every detail counted when correcting an unfair decision. As she closed the notebook with a crisp snap, she felt the familiar spark of determination. This was more than a test drive delayed. It was a moment to honor the values she'd fought so hard to instill. And she would see it through, not as CEO or as the founder, but as a person who believed that respect must be earned and must be shown in every moment to every person. Keisha closed her notebook and took a steadying breath. She reached for her phone and dialed the number of her chief operating officer, Marcus Hayes. Marcus answered in 2 rings, his voice warm but curious. "What's up, Keisha?" he asked. She spoke clearly and with calm urgency. "Marcus, I need you to secure all security footage and service logs from our downtown branch today. I had an unexpected interaction with the floor manager, and I want every detail recorded." As she spoke, she noted the exact time, 2:17 p.m., and asked Marcus to flag that moment on the video timeline. She told him not to inform anyone at the branch yet. The goal was to gather unfiltered information. After ending the call, Keisha reached out to her legal counsel to ensure the chain of custody for the footage was airtight. She wanted no question that what they uncovered would stand up to any scrutiny. While Marcus mobilized the tech team, Keisha sent a quick message to the head of human resources, Angela Lynn. She asked Angela to convene an emergency meeting of her team to prepare for interviews with the manager and any witnesses. Angela responded within minutes, confirming that she would assemble HR staff and that they would have prepared interview templates and confidentiality agreements ready within the hour. Keisha knew that a respectful, fair investigation was critical. She believed firmly that all sides should be heard, but the process had to be thorough and transparent. In her mind, she replayed what had happened: Mike's refusal, the stunned silence, the way other employees looked on. Each detail could point to unconscious bias, a willful misunderstanding of policy, or simple miscommunication. By mid-afternoon, the HR team gathered in a small conference room with whiteboards on 2 walls and a projector set up on a stand. Angela laid out the objectives: collect first-hand accounts, preserve evidence, and determine whether the manager had acted in good, faith under company policy. She stressed that every participant would sign a non-retaliation agreement, so staff could speak honestly without fear. The first interviewee was the junior associate, Leo, whom Keisha had watched earlier. Leo described the moment he saw Keisha arrive, his surprise at not recognizing her, and his relief that he had deferred the conversation to Mike. Leo admitted he felt uneasy when Mike told the CEO to wait in line. He said he thought Mike was trying to prove a point. Next, HR spoke with Jasmine at reception. Jasmine recounted how she had nearly reached for the test drive key herself, but hesitated when Mike stepped in. Each new detail added a layer to the picture. Mike hadn't just been enforcing policy. He seemed determined to treat Keisha like any customer, even after seeing her credentials. Meanwhile, Marcus's team delivered the security footage and badge scan logs to Keisha and Angela. They watched in silence as the video rolled. Keisha's calm entrance, her pause at the desk, then Mike's refusal. Angela paused the video, pointing out that Mike had seen the CEO badge when he flipped through the notebook. He had a brief moment to identify her role, but chose to maintain his stance. Angela noted it in her report. The footage also showed how customers froze nearby, uneasy but unwilling to speak up. Keisha felt a mix of disappointment and resolve. She thanked Marcus's team for their swift work, then asked Angela to proceed with a deeper policy review. Did the wording of the customer policy give Mike room to interpret it this way, or had he deliberately misread it? Angela agreed to compare the policy with best practices and to make recommendations for clearer language. With the investigation underway, Keisha turned her attention to the company's public image. She called an impromptu meeting with her communications director, Rosa Delgado. Rosa arrived with a laptop, ready to draft a statement. Keisha emphasized 2 points. First, that Laurent Automotive Group has a zero-tolerance stance on unfair treatment, and second, that they would act swiftly and transparently. They agreed on language that acknowledged the incident without naming individuals. We uphold dignity and respect for every member of our community, team members and customers alike. We are taking immediate steps to investigate a recent interaction that falls short of our values. We will share results and actions with our stakeholders as soon as possible. Keisha asked Rosa to prepare a press release, a social media post, and an internal memo. She planned to hold a company-wide town hall the next morning at 10 a.m., so every employee would hear about the issue directly from her. That evening, Rosa's drafts were circulating among senior leadership. Keisha read them carefully, making small edits to ensure the tone was firm but empathetic. She added a line about the upcoming diversity and inclusion workshops she had already scheduled for the following week. She asked Rosa to include an invitation for employees to submit questions in advance, anonymously if they preferred. "We need to turn this moment into learning," Keisha told her. Rosa nodded and finalized the timeline. Internal memo at 6 p.m., press release at 7:60, social media post immediately after. Keisha reviewed the schedule and approved it. She then called Angela to confirm that the first round of interviews would wrap by tomorrow morning, in time for the town hall. Angela assured her they would. Before ending her day, Keisha sat at her desk with a cup of herbal tea. She reflected on the steps she had taken: securing evidence, launching a fair investigation, crafting transparent communication. She felt the weight of responsibility, knowing that real change depended on following through. She reviewed the policy. Draft Angela would present soon, thinking ahead to possible updates, clarifying the CEO's authority, adding examples of unacceptable behavior, and strengthening language around respect for leadership and customers alike. She drafted notes for tomorrow's town hall speech, opening with gratitude for the team's hard work, sharing the facts as she knew them, acknowledging the hurt the incident may have caused, and outlining concrete steps for moving forward. She would end by reaffirming her belief in the company's founding values. As she closed her laptop, Keisha knew there was more work ahead, but she felt confident in her process. She trusted her team to handle the details and believed that, by acting quickly and openly, she could turn a painful moment into an opportunity for unity and growth. She left the office with a clear mind, ready to face tomorrow's challenges. The night air felt cool around her as she walked to her car, and she reminded herself that leadership was more than making policies. It was living them, especially when those policies were put to the test. Keisha arrived early the next morning, just as the first rays of sunrise painted the sky pink. The showroom was quiet, the glass walls reflecting the soft light. A few staff members were already there, preparing for the day. Keisha paused in the entrance to look around, taking in the calm before the usual buzz of customers. She carried her leather notebook again, filled with careful notes from the previous day's events. She felt a gentle surge of determination. Today she would hold her town hall meeting, reveal the investigation's findings, and make sure every person understood that respect and fairness were not just words on a wall, but promises she intended to keep. Shortly before 10, employees began to gather in the central lounge area. Chairs were arranged in neat rows, and a simple podium stood at the front. A low hum of conversation rose and fell as people settled in. Some faces looked curious, others uncertain. This was a tight-knit team, and they felt the weight of yesterday's tension. Keisha took a moment to smile at familiar faces. Marisol from accounting, Devante from parts, Layla from marketing, and to greet a few newcomers by name. When the clock struck 10, she tapped on the microphone, and the room hushed. She opened her notebook to the first page filled with bullet points and took a steady breath. "Good morning, everyone," she said, her voice warm but clear. "Thank you all for being here on such short notice. I know yesterday brought some confusion and concern, and I want to address it directly." She paused, looking at each row of chairs. "Our goal has always been to treat every person, every customer, and every team member with dignity and respect. When that promise is broken, we must act. Yesterday, an incident occurred here in our own showroom that fell short of our values. I want you to hear what happened, what we found, and what we will do moving forward." She flipped to the next page, which listed the key moments from the investigation. At 2:17 p.m. yesterday, I arrived in the showroom unannounced to review our customer service process. I was denied a test drive key by our floor manager, Mike Connolly, who insisted I wait in line like any customer despite my identification. We reviewed security footage, service logs, and spoke with witnesses. The evidence clearly showed that Mike saw my credentials and still chose to refuse service. Keisha saw a few heads nodding and others staring intently. She continued, "This decision violated our written policy and, more importantly, our core belief that every person here should be treated with equal care." She closed the notebook and spoke from the heart. "When you make a promise to yourselves, to our customers, to our community, you have to keep it. And if you cannot keep it, you must step aside so someone else can. This company was built on fairness and empathy." She set the notebook down and picked up a prepared statement. Effective immediately, Mike Connolly is no longer employed by Laurent Automotive Group. He was informed of this decision early this morning. We appreciate his past contributions, but we cannot tolerate actions that undermine our mission. A hush fell over the room. Some people shifted in their seats. A few let out small, quiet sighs. Keisha raised her hand gently. "I know this may feel sudden," she said, "but our standards guide every choice we make. When one person's actions hurt our promise, we must show that our words mean something. Actions have consequences." She looked around and saw Marisol's eyes shining with relief, and Devante leaning forward, eager to speak. Keisha invited questions, and a hand shot up. It was Layla from marketing. "Keisha, thank you for your transparency. My question is, how do we ensure this doesn't happen again?" Keisha smiled appreciatively. "Excellent question. This brings me to the next steps. First, we will update our customer service policy to include clearer guidance on how to identify leadership roles and how to handle unscheduled visits by any senior team member. We will revise the language to make it impossible to misinterpret. Second, we are introducing a mandatory workshop on unbiased decision-making. Every employee from sales to service to administration will attend. Third, we are setting up a quarterly review process where we analyze customer interactions through anonymous feedback. If someone feels they were treated unfairly, we will investigate as we have done, swiftly and fairly." She paused to let that sink in. I also want to strengthen our team's voice. Starting today, we are expanding our anonymous suggestion system, adding a direct line to senior management. You can share an idea, a concern, or a report, and it will come straight to me if needed. No filters, no delays. She saw heads nodding, and a few people scribbling notes in their own notebooks. We will also recognize positive examples of our values in action. Each month we'll highlight a respect champion, someone who went above and beyond to make a customer or coworker feel seen and valued. She let a moment of silence follow. Then she shifted tone slightly, softening it. I also want to acknowledge how this incident may have affected you. You came to work yesterday, perhaps feeling uncertain or upset. We are a family here and we take care of each other. If you need to talk, our HR team will be available all day, and I will have an open door hour this afternoon from 2 to 3. You can come by without an appointment. It's important to me that you know you can share your thoughts directly. She allowed a few seconds, then smiled. Now I want to thank you all for your hard work and for believing in our mission. I am proud to lead a team that holds itself to a higher standard. Let's move forward together. After the formal portion, employees trickled into small groups discussing what they heard. Marisol spoke with Angela from HR, asking for more details on the workshop schedule. Devante and a few technicians chatted about how they would improve the charging station signage. Layla jotted down ideas for a social media campaign celebrating respect champions. Keisha circulated among them, listening and encouraging. She felt a buzz of energy returning to the space, a sense that rather than being punished, the team was strengthening its bonds through shared values. By late afternoon, the first draft of the revised policy was circulating via email. Rosa had already posted a Respect Champion nomination form on the company intranet. The anonymous feedback line was updated, with clear instructions on how to submit ideas or concerns. Keisha checked in with Marcus, who confirmed that the communications plan was executing smoothly. The email went out to all stakeholders, and the social media announcement had been scheduled. Customers who visited that day were greeted with a fresh display highlighting the company's commitment to respect, complete with a copy of the updated policy and a QR code linking to an online feedback form. As the sun dipped low, Keisha locked up the office and walked through the showroom one more time. The lights illuminated the polished vehicles, and the chairs in the lounge looked orderly again. She ran a hand along the sleek hood of a new hybrid model, reflecting on what had happened. Confronting unfair behavior in her own company had not been easy. It had required quick thinking, clear evidence, and firm resolve. Yet standing there, she felt hopeful. This moment would be remembered not for the mistake that happened, but for the way the team responded, together, with honesty and strength. That evening, Keisha wrote in her personal journal, "Today was hard, but it was right." She reminded herself that leadership was about more than giving orders. It was about embodying the change you want to see. She closed her notebook, knowing that part 4 of this journey had come to an end. Tomorrow, she would begin part 5, healing, learning, and building, a legacy that outlasted any single person's actions. And she was ready. 3. The morning after the town hall meeting, the atmosphere in the showroom felt renewed. Keisha arrived to find a small gathering near the lounge area, team members chatting in low voices, sipping coffee, and comparing notes on the updated policy. Some held printed copies of the new service guidelines, while others scrolled through their emails to read the memo she had sent the night before. Even the vehicles seemed to gleam a little brighter under the showroom lights. As Keisha walked through the rows, she heard snippets of conversation, excitement about the upcoming workshops, relief that the issue had been addressed so swiftly, and curiosity about how the new Respect Champion program would work. It was clear that the team had embraced the changes and was ready to build on them. By mid-morning, the first workshop on unbiased decision-making was underway, in a conference room filled with round tables and large notepads. An expert in human behavior led the session, guiding participants through simple exercises that revealed hidden assumptions. Team members paired up and took turns role-playing difficult customer scenarios, learning to spot and correct automatic reactions. There was laughter when someone overdramatized a hesitant glance, and quiet concentration when the group examined how a single word choice could make a person feel welcome or shut out. Keisha circulated among the tables, listening and offering praise when she saw genuine insights. She believed that learning through experience was more powerful than lectures, and this interactive format kept everyone engaged and eager to apply the lessons on the showroom floor. After the workshop, the staff took a short break in the lounge. The minute of appreciation ritual had evolved into a new tradition, a post-workshop reflection where each person named one positive takeaway from the session. Some spoke of being more mindful of eye contact. Others mentioned the power of asking open-ended questions. The energy in the room felt warm and collaborative, a sharp contrast to the tension of the previous day. Keisha raised her cup in a silent toast and thanked everyone for their honesty and willingness to learn. She reminded them that these skills would not only help customers but strengthen their relationships with each other. In that moment, the workshop was more than a training. It was a shared experience that bonded the team. In the days that followed, the revised service policy was posted prominently in the lobby. A simple plaque bearing Keisha's favorite quote, "Respect and integrity cost nothing, but their value is priceless," hung beside it. Customers walking in could see the statement and read about the company's commitment to fair treatment. The design was clean and modern, with bold type and a small logo to catch the eye. Underneath, a QR code linked to the full policy online, along with instructions on how to submit feedback anonymously. Keisha watched as a family scanned the code and nodded with approval. The plaque served as both a reminder and a promise. This dealership stood for something deeper than sales numbers. To ensure that the new policies took root, Keisha established quarterly diversity and fairness audits. She recruited a small team from different departments, sales, service, finance, and HR, along with an external consultant to review customer interaction records and feedback forms. Each quarter, they would present findings at a leadership meeting, highlighting areas of strength and opportunities for improvement. The results would be summarized in a short report shared with all employees. This transparency built trust, as every person could see where the company excelled and where it still needed work. Keisha believed that by examining data regularly, they could avoid blind spots and keep moving forward together. Meanwhile, Laurent Automotive's community scholarship program took on new life. Inspired by the lessons learned, Keisha announced that each year's scholarship recipients would be invited to the dealership for a career day, where they could tour the facility, meet team members, and practice interview skills. Local high school students came in groups, curious about how a business ran and eager to learn technical and soft skills. Staff volunteers led sessions on resume writing, customer communication, and basic vehicle maintenance. Parents who attended the tours praised the program for its practical approach and genuine care. Keisha smiled as she handed out name badges to the teens. This was about more than cars. It was about empowering the next generation. News of the dealership's swift and thorough response spread beyond Atlanta. Local newspapers ran follow-up stories highlighting the changes and quoting satisfied customers. One reporter wrote, "In an industry long criticized for impersonal service, Laurent Automotive stands out for turning its own misstep into an example of accountability." Social media posts from visitors praised the clear policy display and easy feedback options. Competitors took note, and within weeks, several other dealerships reached out to Keisha for advice on conducting similar bias awareness workshops. She agreed to speak at a regional industry conference, sharing her approach to handling internal conflicts and reinforcing company values. Her story became a case study in ethical leadership, showing that mistakes, when addressed openly, could strengthen trust. Back in the showroom, the Respect Champion program gained momentum. Each month, employees submitted nominations highlighting instances when a coworker had shown kindness or exceptional customer care. The first winner was Taylor in the service department, who had stayed late to reassure a worried customer whose car needed extensive repairs. Taylor received a framed certificate and a small gift, but more importantly, public recognition during a brief ceremony at the dealership. Team members applauded, and photos of the event were shared on the company's social media channels. These celebrations created a positive feedback loop. Employees sought out opportunities to demonstrate values, and customers noticed the genuine care. The program reminded everyone that respect was not just a policy but a practice. Outside the dealership, community leaders commended Laron Automotive's efforts. At a local Chamber of Commerce meeting, the mayor praised Keisha's leadership in promoting fair business practices. The chamber invited her to co-host a workshop for small business owners on improving customer relations and addressing bias. Keisha agreed, seeing an opportunity to extend the impact of her experience. She spoke of the importance of listening, data-driven reviews, and visible commitments like plaques and audits. The room was full of nodding heads and thoughtful questions. What had started as a tense moment in her own showroom had become a lesson for the wider business community. In quiet moments, Keisha reflected on how far she and the company had come. She still drove her father's old truck on weekends, savoring the familiar hum of the engine and the memories it carried. Those simple drives reminded her of the values her parents had instilled: hard work, humility, and kindness. She often stopped by local community centers to speak with young entrepreneurs, sharing stories of both success and missteps. She told them that leadership was not about perfection, but about how you respond when things go wrong. Each story she shared, including the one about being denied service in her own dealership, carried the same lesson. Respect must be earned, but it must also be given freely. As months passed, the policies and programs became part of the dealership's fabric. New hires learned about the dignity and service training on their first day. Quarterly audit findings shaped staff retreats and planning sessions. Customers commented on the warmth of the team and the transparency of the company's practices. And every morning, Keisha still walked through the showroom, greeting employees by name and checking the plaque by the door. She knew that values required daily attention. The moment when she had to fire her floor manager had been difficult, but it had set in motion a chain of positive change that reached far beyond one individual. In her heart, she believed that the true measure of leadership was not just in building a business, but in building a community grounded in respect and trust.